Hello everybody. In this video we're going to take a look at some of the character animation features in iClone. So I have a character here and we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my animation tab here in the content panel. And if we take a look at what's in here, you'll see that there's a lot of different animations that we can easily just drag and drop onto our character. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these. I think the first thing we'll do is look at some of these poses here. Poses, of course, are not animations. They're simply poses. However, we can still do something with them here when looking at movement on our character. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag a pose onto my character here. This could use a little adjusting. You can see that there's some intersection here that we can adjust, but we'll take a look at that later. And I'm just going to scrub in my timeline, let's say frame, approximately 200. And we'll go ahead and drag another pose on the character. So what you'll see is that we get movement going from one pose, one static pose, to another static pose. Now, if I want that to happen more quickly, I simply need to adjust the timing in our timeline here. And let's go ahead and take a look at how we can do that. Now, in my timeline here, I'm not currently seeing the tracks that would pertain to my character here. So what I need to do is go to this icon over here on the far left of the timeline interface. And what I'm going to do is check my avatar here. And that will enable the tracks for that character in the timeline so that we can work with them. And currently I have, I believe, 1,800 frames in my animation. We can come over here and select Fit to Window to see our entire time frame here, or timeline rather. 1,800 frames, but let's just focus in more tightly on this area here where we have this movement happening. And to do so, I can click on the magnifying glass icon here, and I will select Zoom In. Now you'll notice also that there is a hotkey for this, and it is the plus key. So if I click on Zoom In, it'll zoom in on it. I can click on this repeatedly that way, or remember the hotkey was the plus sign, so I need to press Shift and then the plus sign on my keyboard, and then that will zoom in on that area of my timeline. Now currently if I play this and it goes from that one pose to the other pose, it's happening very, very slowly. If I want that to happen more quickly, what I will do is I will take that second keyframe, select it, and simply drag it to the left. Currently it's happening over 100 frames. If we want it to happen twice as fast, we'll simply drag this over to frame 100. And then if we rewind and play, it happens twice as fast. Maybe we want it to be really fast, so let's go ahead and take this keyframe and drag it all the way to, let's say, frame 20 or so, and we'll go ahead and play it. And now you can see that the movement happens much more quickly. Or perhaps we want the whole animation to happen later in our timeline, in which case I'll select my two keyframes and we'll just drag it over here to frame 100. Rewind, play. Our character does nothing, and then when it gets to frame 100, goes into that position. Let's go ahead and try experimenting with a few more of these poses just to check them out, just to see what we have available to us here. We've got a pose of the character, it looks like leaning on the wall. I'm just going to go to frame 20 here, put another pose of the character also leaning against the wall but positioned a little differently. Maybe we'll go another 10 frames over, drag yet another pose on the character. We'll just explore these. They're not going to exactly make an effective animation because we're really just going from one pose to another, but still it's a very convenient and interesting way to see what is actually available for us here. We can put some seated poses on the character, and let's go ahead and play this and see what we have happening here. So you can see that we're just very quickly going from one pose to another. So not a very effective looking animation. However, you could get some good effects using this simply by going from one pose to another pose. That could be a great starting point for an animation. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all these poses here in my timeline by selecting them and deleting them, which will put our character back into his T-pose. And we'll take a look at some actual animation files now that we can apply to our character and some of the things that we can do with it. So let's just see what we can find here. We've got some idle poses. We've got some poses here of standing idle and various others where it looks like the character is holding a gun. We've got some different poses here for this Mason character, for example. Let's try some of those. And in fact, we'll go ahead and go to the Move tab, and maybe we'll try this looping walk animation. So I'm simply going to grab it and drag it onto my character here. And let's go ahead and play it and see what we've got here. So here is our character walking. Looks a little awkward. The arms look a little awkward on the character. And here's where we finished on our timeline. You can see that we're going beyond the timeline here, at which case the character stops walking. If we scrub in our timeline, you'll see he walks, and then once we get to the end of this animation clip here, he just stops. I'm going to zoom out a little. Remember that the magnifying glass, you have both zoom in and you have zoom out. You'll notice that there's also a hotkey for that, which is the minus key. So now I could simply click on this button if I want to zoom out, or I can click on the minus key. Remember, Shift and plus to zoom in. So we can quickly and easily look at our timeline and zoom in and zoom out on it using those hotkeys or using the button here. So we've got our character walking. Let's take a look at some of the things that we can do to this animation, maybe to continue working with it. So this is the clip right here. If we want it to happen later, maybe we don't want it to happen right at the beginning of our animation, we could take this clip and just drag it over here. I'll drag it so it starts more around frame 100 or so. And now if we play this, nothing until it gets to frame 100, and then our character starts walking. He stops walking once the timeline goes beyond that clip there. But let's see what we can do about that. So we've got a number of different tools here in the timeline, and these are the three I want to look at right now, right here, these three here. This one is for looping. We've got this other one for speed, and we've got this other one which is for resizing the clip. So let's go ahead and take a look at looping this animation. I simply activate that button. And then if I bring my cursor to the end of this clip and I drag, I can make this animation repeat as many times as I want. So now this character will just continue walking for, well, in this case, 3 times longer than before. going to go ahead and stop that and rewind it, and we'll take a look at a few more things that we can do with this. So again, we could make this repeat even more if we want. We can make it repeat as long as we want. Now I have the clip repeating, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. It's repeating this looping animation 5 times, which makes the character walk for quite a long period of time. Now, what if we actually want the walk to be faster? Maybe this is a little bit too slow. We want the character to walk more quickly. Well, this time, instead of making the animation loop here, we'll click on this second button, which will allow us to speed up or slow down the animation. So with that button activated, I'll bring my mouse once again to the end of the clip, and in this case we'll make it walk considerably faster by just dragging this over here. This might end up being a little too fast, but let's go ahead and really push it and see how fast that looks. Go ahead and play it, and now you can see he's walking much more quickly, as if like you sometimes see in old movies when they play it really quickly, and it looks like people in the old days walked really, really fast, which of course we know is not exactly the case, but there you go. I'm going to go ahead and drag that back out. Maybe we'll just make it a little faster, maybe bring it to about frame 1000 or so, and go ahead and stop it, rewind it, play it. And here we've got the character walking a little more quickly, but still at maybe a pace that looks like it's fairly natural. Now, what I'm going to do is go back to the looping feature here. And I'm actually going to get rid of, I'm not going to have this animation repeat 5 times. I think I'll only have it repeat 2 times. Because there's actually some other things I want to show you with this. I also think I'm going to slow it down because I think I want to give this guy really kind of, I'm going to make his walk look tougher than it is right now. I see this character as maybe a tough character. He's strong, he's powerful. He's short of stature, but a very, very strong individual. And I think that to get that across, maybe I want him to actually have a slower walk. So I'm going to go ahead and drag. Oops, I'm still in my, I still have the looping tool selected, just so you know. Make sure that if you're done looping and you want to speed up or slow down the animation, make sure that you choose the appropriate key. And we'll go ahead and just drag this once again over maybe to frame 800 or approximately 800, in this case 806. We'll go ahead and play this and see. Maybe that's a little too slow. Let's go ahead and drag this over to the left. The key thing to think about here is that if you need something to happen more slowly, drag it to the right so it takes more time, so it requires more frames. If you want it to happen more quickly, drag it to the left and make it take less time or less frames. Okay, let's go ahead and see how fast that is. And I think that's a pretty good walk. It looks like he's very sure of himself, and he's confident, he's tough, or at least that's what we're going for. So I think I'm happy with the speed of this animation clip now. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that we actually have a number of different clips within this Motion Mason folder here. We, in fact, have some animations of the character starting to walk and stopping walking. So let's go ahead and see how we can apply those to our animation as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag this over to the left so that it's not starting right at the beginning. And we'll go ahead and drag this walk start. This looks like walk relaxed start. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like on our character. So go ahead and drag it onto the character, and we'll just scrub through here, and you can see he starts walking. Now this would be an animation that wouldn't make much sense to loop. It's not really intended to be a looping animation, but we could see what it looks like if it were to loop. If we play it, you'll see that not intended to loop. You saw that little hiccup that happened in there? That's because the beginning and the end of the animation are not the same, unlike a walking animation, a looping walking animation where the beginning and the end of the animation are the same, meaning that then it can be easily looped. So we're not going to loop that, obviously. I'm going to go ahead and return that back to, so it starts just, plays it just once. And we can go ahead and play that, see if we like the speed of it. He does take a few steps there. I might just check this out. We'll drag this back over. In fact, let's go ahead and zoom in on it a little bit. Because what you'll notice here is that we have this little area here that is for blending. It's so that it can smoothly blend between this animation clip and this animation clip. And if we drag this over here like this, then there'll be a nice little area here where it'll blend from one animation to the other, pretty smoothly. Should look pretty natural. We can go ahead and play that. He starts his walk. And a little bit of a hiccup there. There's a little bit of a hiccup. Let's see if we can maybe adjust that area here where they transition. Maybe if we give that transition a little bit more time by dragging that transition a little further to the left, we might be able to create a little bit of a smoother effect. Let's go ahead and play that and see. And yeah, I think that smooths it out a little. Maybe it could use a little bit more work, but I think for the time being that should be good. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out because we'll go ahead and add another clip. There's also the clip of the walking in. That way we can have our character walking. He'll start walking, he'll walk for a couple cycles, and then he'll do his walk end animation. So I'll go ahead and drag my timeline over here. We'll just drag this onto the character. We can check it out, see what it looks like. There it is, and he just stops and then stands there. So once again, I'll grab the animation clip itself and we'll just drag it over to this other animation so that there's a little bit of overlapping happening. Maybe we want to zoom in on that, just check it out, see what it's looking like there. Scrub through here, see what that little bit of a hiccup there because there's a little bit of a gap there. Eliminate that. Maybe play this part of the animation, see how that's looking, and that looks pretty good. He comes to a nice stop. Let's go ahead and take a look at our whole timeline here. Maybe we can go ahead and just play the whole thing, see how it's looking, and figure out what the next step is to work with this animation with this character. Still a little bit of a hiccup there, something that we can still work on and refine a little more. Okay, so that's what we've got so far. So what do we have going on here? Well, we've got 3 clips in our timeline. We've got this one, the first clip, where the character is standing there and then goes into a walking animation. We have this second clip that's being played twice, where the character does a looping walk animation. And then we have our third clip here, where the character comes to a stop and we finish the animation. Notice that this clip actually has a lot of extra time in it. I'm not sure why that's the case, but we can cut that from the clip, or we can cut any of our clips if we just scrub to the place where we want to cut it in the timeline. Right click on the clip and we can say break, found here. And now I can go ahead and delete that part that I don't need, and we still have everything on this clip that we want, and the character comes to a standstill. Now, another thing that we can do to this clip is if we're done actually piecing these together and we want to make it into a single animation clip, we can do that. What I'm going to do is select all three of my clips. I held down Shift and then just clicked on them all. I'll right click, and what we're going to do is merge these clips. We'll just merge them. And it'll become a single animation clip now. So now we've got this single animation clip. It's looking pretty good, but it looks like it could use some work. I don't know if we exactly have a tough guy walk here. His arms feel awfully close to his body. Let's see what we can do to maybe make the walk a little more interesting, make him look a little tougher. What I'm going to do is right click on my animation clip and I'm going to go to Modify. And we'll get the Motion Modifier panel here. And there are a number of things that we can do with this. So you'll see that there's a lot of different categories like lean back, neck back, and so on and so on. I recommend playing with those, see what they do to the animations, to your animation clips. If we want to get an idea of what's going to happen, we can click on Preview. And you'll see that we get an instruction here to press the space key to preview. Press the space key. And what you'll notice is if I use these sliders, we can bring the head back, we can bring it forward. Well, that was the neck. We can bring the head forward or back. We can make his walk less upright. We can make it more upright. We can play around with these different properties of his walk. Now, a couple things I think that might work out well for this character would be if we were to play with his walk and make it, well, we can make it more narrow, in other words, bringing his feet closer in, or because we got a tough guy here, we could make his feet further apart as well. Now, I don't think I want to go this far with the walk, but maybe just make it a little wider than it originally was. I think that could be a nice touch. We might look at some of the properties on the arm as well, on the arms, like the lower elbow. We can bring these arms out a little like that. I think that could help to make him look a little tougher. Got our shoulders up, shoulders down. So again, we can really play with these sliders to adjust this animation clip. We've got the exaggeration sliders here for both upper and lower body. If we bring the upper body down, you'll see it gets rid of that animation on the top, on his torso. If we want to increase that, we can actually pull that over to the right as well. And I kind of like that, actually. Maybe I'll just scale it back a little. I think a couple other things I'm going to do will be to bring his neck back a little and maybe his head back a little bit like that. I think that gives him a little bit more of a swagger. Maybe make him more upright. Getting a little bit of a popping in those legs, I'm thinking. We could lower those hips a little bit to get rid of that popping on the legs. And I think that's working well. I think that's getting there. So let's go ahead and click on our spacebar to stop the previewing. And with those settings set, those settings that I just adjusted, I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And we'll go ahead and play the animation, and you'll see that it's kept those changes that we applied to the walk. The arms are looking a little better. They still look like they could use a little bit of work, but he's definitely looking a lot tougher now than he did before. Perhaps another thing that we could work on would be the hands. And that's a really simple one because we can once again come over here to our animation tab in the content panel. And at the bottom we have gestures, and we have a number of different hand positions that we can just quickly and easily apply to our characters. I'm going to go ahead and go to the hold. I think we've got some fists in here somewhere, some closed fists. I'm going to go ahead and drag that onto the character, and that will apply, and maybe that will help give him a little bit of a tougher demeanor here with his walk. Now, I still feel like we could bring those arms out a little more. So let's take a look at how we can do that. It's looking pretty good, but I just feel like I'd like him to push those arms out, or put those arms out a little further out from his side. So what I'm going to do this time is come over here to the Modify panel, and we'll click on this button here, which is the Animation tab for our Modify panel. And I'm going to click on Edit Motion Layer. And here we have, currently I have mirroring on, meaning that if I do something to the right side, it'll happen to the left side as well. I think that'll work well for this example here. I'm going to go ahead and select the shoulder, change over to my Rotate tool, and we'll just bring those arms out a little bit more, like that. We could try rotating them a little bit, maybe like that as well. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the mirroring and maybe just bring that left arm a little bit out like that. And we'll go ahead and close that. Take a look at our character here and see how he's looking. So now you can see his arms are a little further out. He's really got his chest puffed out like that, looking really tough. Now, it's very important to realize that all this animation is here in the timeline. We have our character here. And remember that to actually see that, in this case, we needed to come over to this tab and make the avatar visible. If we uncheck it, his properties won't be visible. If we check it, his properties will be visible. We've got our animation clip here. We've also got this drop down. Well, here we got this drop down that shows us some keys for gestures. For both the left hand and the right hand, we can place different hand positions at different parts of our timeline if we want. And we also have this motion layer. We don't have a whole lot happening here because we really just made a change at the very beginning of the animation where we brought the arms out. So we don't have anything over the length of the animation here that would require any changes in timing. But we're going to take a look at that now. So let's see what we can do with that. This time we're going to actually add not just a change to the character's pose layered on top of his animation, but we'll actually layer on some new animation. We'll work on his head. So what I'm going to do is go back to my Edit Motion Layer tab here. And I'm going to select his head for this example, and we'll go ahead and change over to our Rotate tool. And let's see what we can do with that. So I'm going to just put a key on the head here. We've got a key on the head, so if we look at, expand this, the motion layer, you'll see there's a key right here on the head. And I'm going to scrub to frame 100, and maybe I'll just put another key on simply by making a slight adjustment to the head. And then, actually, let's see, maybe I'll drag that key. In fact, I'm going to drag it over here more to approximately frame 200 or so. And then what I'm going to do is have the character look over to his right. Place another key maybe around here, and then he'll take a few more steps and he'll slowly start to look over in this direction here to his left. Scrub, you can see he's turning his head now. He'll look over to his left. I'll just make a slight adjustment, which will place another key on his head. Maybe we'll make him once again look over to his right. And then as he comes to a stop, he'll start looking forward again. So I'll just scrub in my timeline and perhaps bring his head back to look forward. Something like that. Okay, let's go ahead and close this edit motion layer panel here, and we'll go ahead and play it. You can see that as I was doing that, I was adding keyframes here. I can very quickly, very easily, if I need to adjust the timing of them, I can very quickly and easily grab these keys and move them. We can just move them in time very, very quickly, very easily to adjust the timing of our animation. But let's go ahead and see how this is looking. Maybe I'll just rotate the camera a little, and then we'll hit play. And now our character walks around looking really tough, looks around, surveys the scene. And then looks forward again, and there it is. Yet another thing that we can animate on our character, of course, would be the face. Right now his expression pretty much stays static through the whole animation. We might want to first establish an expression for his face. We can do that by coming over here to Face Key. We've got a bunch of different expressions. If we want him to be happy, I don't know how happy he really looks there, but we can choose some of these happy face poses here, or maybe we want him angry. Find a nice pose for him. Maybe I'll go with that. He looks a little bit confrontational there. So maybe we'll go with that. Player animation. And we can change that expression then to another expression if we want. Let's go ahead and just try something a little different. Maybe we can try this surprise. Go ahead and apply that. I don't think I'll keep it, but there he is, surprise. Kind of looks goofy in my opinion, but if we scrub it, you'll see that it changes from the one pose to the other one. I think we're going to need to get rid of that one. Looks pretty bad. Let's go ahead and see what we got here in our timeline. I'm going to select expression here so that we can actually see the expression keys here and maybe expand on that. Expand on it here, actually. There we go. Here you can see, here's the key here. Maybe what I'll do is copy that first key, scrub in my timeline here, and we'll go ahead and paste it here. That way the expression will happen a little more quickly. Let's take a look at that. So you can see that's happening a little more quickly. It looks a little more natural. I don't much like it though, so I'm going to go ahead and select it and delete it. So we've got this expression on him. Still, it might be nice to get some changes in expression here. Not sure which one I should use. We can just play around with them and see what we like. Maybe drag this over here, see if that's enough of a change in expression. Ah, that's actually kind of nice. It's nice and subtle. And I like how it's happening on the character's head turn, which feels very natural. And then maybe when he comes to a stop, maybe we'll do another change in expression here. As he turns, maybe have him go into something happy. Maybe this this smile right here, something like that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to close that. We'll just see how that's looking. And I kind of like that. Let's go ahead and play this and see how our animation is looking. And I think that's working out pretty nicely. So let me select my character. It looks like I've accidentally deselected my character here. So I got my character selected. I'm going to go back to the animation tab in my modify panel. Because one thing I wanted to just point out, I don't think I'm going to go too deep into it, but also if you go to that face key panel here, not only can you animate by just applying these different expressions to your character, you can also come in here and actually animate these individual parts of your character as well. Like I can select the corner of the mouth here and I can adjust it as well and animate it individually, not just those kind of set expressions that we had here under the expression tab. So I just want you to be aware of that you could come in here and actually adjust and animate these different parts of the face here. You also have the modify tab here as well, which also gives you the capabilities of being able to animate individual parts of the character, such as the eye, where we can add eye blinks in here if we want, or we can animate squints and so on. So be aware of that. One other thing I'd like to also try out before wrapping this video up is currently I still feel like the arms are maybe a bit too stiff at the elbow, so I'm going to quickly address that with this animation. To do so, I'm going to select my clip, right click on it. I'm going to once again go to modify, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this stiff arm and stiff elbow property on the character. We can go ahead and preview this and press the space bar so we see what the character is doing, and we'll go ahead and just loosen up those properties. Or maybe stiffen them up. Just make them look a little more natural. I actually think that looks a little bit better. I'm kind of surprised that actually stiffening them up rather than loosening them seems to have improved the animation a little bit, in my opinion. But let me go ahead and stop previewing that. I'll go ahead and apply it by saying OK. And there it is. There's our animation of our character. Perhaps it could still use some work, but that's just a matter of putting some more time into it and fine-tuning it. So before wrapping up this video, there's one other thing I'd like to point out to you, and that is that in our timeline here, the default typically for a project in iClone is going to be 1,800 frames. You can see that I don't actually need all those frames. What do you do if you need more frames in a project or less frames? Well, let's take a look at that right now. So it looks like I could end this around, I don't know, maybe frame 1,350. It looks like if I scrub in here, actually my last frame in my animation is about 1,363. We could go ahead and stop it there. So let's go ahead and go to Edit, Project Settings. And what I'm going to do is simply change my total frames from 1,800 to 1,360, or 1,363. And we'll go ahead and close that, and you'll see that now my project ends on that frame. So if you don't need the extra frames, you can go ahead and get rid of them, because you just won't need to render out that much if it's actually not part of the timeline that you need there. Let's take a very quick look now at rendering. I know we've looked at that in other videos before, but I'm just going to go to my Render tab. Go to Render Video. I want to render out a video. I can choose the size here. I will pick from my drop down this HD 720, I believe, and take a look at these settings. I think they look good. This will be an MP4. I think I'm ready to go ahead and export my animation as a video render. So I'll go ahead and hit export, give it a name, make sure you know where you're saving it to, and save it. So there you go. There's some techniques for animating your characters in iClone. I hope that this has been useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.